Yes, you read that right. Today we are talking about Canon's RF Holy Trinity of lenses, the Trinity as it's called, La Trinidad. So good morning, good evening, buenos dias, buenas tardes, buenas noches, buenos, bueno. Just hope it's all good for you out there. Today we're going to talk about these three lenses, the 15 to 35, the 70, the 24 to 70, and the 70 to 200, all RF, all f2.8, because what I realized is while there's a lot of videos out there talking about why this particular combo of three lenses, these three bad boys right here, are so important to any photographer's kit, there's some weird stuff about them. And I wish someone had made this video before I purchased these, so I just kind of had a better understanding of what to expect with these three lenses. There are just some things that I don't know. I don't know why Canon chose to do certain things here. I have been shooting on this kit now for almost a year. I was originally shooting on the EOS R, now on the R5. I have the 24 to 105 actually shooting this video since I usually use 15 to 35 here in the studio. So shout out to that lens, because that lens is, I think, incredibly underrated. But let's dive into the Trinity of lenses and talk about some quirks that I think you should know about. First up is the 15 to 35. Now this lens is probably my favorite lens to use. That said, one of the things that is missing on here, I think, is that there is no lock. On both the 70 to 200 and the 24 to 70, there's a lock. And what that does is it makes sure that you don't extend the lens when it's in your bag or if you're carrying your camera around with you. And I don't know why there isn't a lock on this lens. It is still a zoom lens, 15 to 35. The throw, which is the distance that lens comes up, if you want to see that real quick, it's not a lot, but it's just enough that I feel a little sketched out about it. Like when I'm out hiking and it kind of drifts between like 35 and 28. And a lot of the times I actually just like shooting at 35, and I would kind of like it to just be locked in there and then know that, hey, if I need to go wider, if I want to go wider, I can pull that lock off, kind of like what I do with the 70 to 200. So that's kind of the first weird thing for this. The second weird thing that I think goes along with the lock is the fact that this is the only RF lens or only RF zoom lens that I've seen that twists in the opposite direction of all the other lenses. So you actually start at 35 and you do a clockwise turn to extend the throw, get all the way out to 15 millimeters. Where on the rest of the lenses, you pull counterclockwise to send the throw out and zoom out. So that's kind of weird, and it's tough for your muscle memory. Like if I have the 24 to 70 on my camera, I flip over to the 15 to 35, now all of a sudden I have to like rewire my brain and go, okay, now you're twisting this way if you want to go. I think it actually, I guess it makes sense, because now that I'm thinking about it, if you were starting at 70, you would twist clockwise in order to, no, hold on. To go wider. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, that if you're going wider, here's what it is. I'm used to twisting a certain way and having the throw go further out, and that sort of tactile feeling of the weight going forward as I spin a certain direction, regardless of the focal range. I can see how that kind of makes sense with the focal range change. Like if you want to go wider, twist one way. If you want to go more punched in, twist another way. But I think because that changes the throw, the weight and sort of the feeling of it feels different. It feels wrong. I guess that's the way that I want to put it. Yeah, maybe that's not a big deal for you, but for me, for some reason, that messes with my brain. So I wanted to include it in this video. The final thing that I need to say about this lens is people have talked about a like ibis waddle, ibis waddle, like it's a penguin or something. No, an ibis wobble when you're all the way out at 15 millimeters, shooting on the R5 or R6, which has in-body image stabilization that's supposed to work in conjunction with the lens stabilization inside of this lens. I have not particularly seen any issues like that, but I don't know. I'm also not really looking for them. I mostly use this lens if I'm doing video. I use it at 20. I don't take it all the way out to 15. I don't know why. for me, like 24 and 15 aren't like super desirable focal ranges for me. I really like the look of 20. I really like the look of 35. This is effectively a 20 and 35 lens, and everything in between I just really kind of don't touch. Sometimes I'll do 15. I've done 15 here and there, but yeah, haven't noticed any wobbling or anything like that, other aside from just like, you know, camera shake when you're not on a gimbal. I've seen it on all cameras, Sony's, Fuji's, Canons. So that's not really been a concern of mine, but leave a comment down below if that's something that you've seen or you have a problem with, I guess. I don't know. Those are some of the quirks with the 15 to 35. Next up, the 24 to 70. Now this lens I think is the most, I don't even have that lock on. Whew, whew. This lens is probably the most, it's the most boring lens I think out of this, in a good way. It's really practical, it works, kind of does what it says on the tin, it feels normal, feels natural. You know, all of these have control rings, focus, manual focus, and focal range control on them. There's autofocus and stabilizer switches, has the lock. It's a really normal lens. And a big part of this whole L series lineup is the fact that this is image stabilized. I already made a whole video talking about why this ended up in my kit sort of in that middle slot between that 24-ish range and 70 over something like the 28 to 70. Part of that was because it did not have image stabilization. I actually used this lens, we used this lens to shoot a lot of video, especially when we want something more with like that 50 millimeter focal range that's still stabilized well. This gets us there. This actually I think looks really good. And if you're doing something like video and photography hybrid shooting, I think this is the lens you have to get. If you're a wedding photographer and you're just focusing on photography and you need that range between 28 and 70, that's where I think that the f2 28 to 70 really makes sense, and I've seen it be an awesome tool for folks in that world. But I think if you're doing pretty much anything else, photography or video related, just this is the one to get. I don't think I have any problems with this lens. I don't think I have any quirks about it. This lens is actually totally fine. I'm okay with this lens. The 24 to 70. I know, you guys are surprised, right? I already made that whole video about why I went with the 24 to 70 over this 28 to 70.
Dude, I knew I recognized you. I've watched your thing that like helped me realize I don't need the 2.0, I need the 2.8.
So you're telling me I'm YouTube famous? Is that what you're telling me?
That this guy right here helped me make the right decision on my
You've actually seen one of my YouTube videos before. Wow.
First time in the live.
That is
That's
a small
pretty
world.
crazy.
That is pretty wild. That
Dude,
is
yeah,
pretty
keep going. I've seen your stuff for sure.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Surprise, surprise. But I wish Canon made more of its zoom lenses like this. Image stabilized with a lock. Just works. Just works. I'm very happy with this lens. Good job, Canon. Good job. Finally, the final piece of this Trinity is the 70 to 200. This is, like I said, all these are the f2.8 versions. The 70 to 200 now. This has a lot of quirks. I have my notes right here, and just so the first quirk that comes with this is the stabilizer modes on this lens. I've tried to read the documentation and understand, and I feel like I'm a fairly technical person when it comes to these things, but I still don't really get why there's 3 different modes of stabilization on this lens. It just seems kind of like, for me personally, I just kind of leave it in mode 1 and shoot, and it seems to be fine. I can do a lot of handheld, slower, like I've done, I think 1/4, 1.5 second shutter speed with this lens, and it's come out sharp still, which is great. At that stabilizer mode of 1. Haven't shot a ton of video with this, a little bit of B-roll here and there, but fine, no complaints. I don't know in what scenario would I need to know to go to mode 2 or 3. It just seems like it's, I don't know, if you're using that, please let me know down in the comments below, like, what is your, how do you parse when you need to, like, oh, this is a situation where I need stabilizer mode 1, stabilizer mode 2, stabilizer mode 3. I don't know, I just leave it in stabilizer mode 1 and I try not to think about it. That seems to be more than enough for me, but kind of a quirk, kind of weird to have that there. Now the second thing with this 70 to 200 is this lens hood. These hoods now have this like little slot for, I I guess, twisting, turning, adjusting like VNDs and CP filters and things like that. The problem being is that Canon, even making this perfect, beautiful Trinity, made these two lenses an 82mm thread mount and made this a 77 thread mount, which is really inconvenient because if you want to buy filters that cover this entire range, you think, oh, I'll just get a step-up ring for this lens and that'll cover my kit. That's what I thought when I first got here, and I was correct. I can throw on a step-up ring and use all of my filters that I have across the 82mm thread mount. However, they are not compatible with this. Once you get that on there, you won't be able to get the hood on, or if you try to put that on there, don't do it. It'll be near impossible to get those stepped up rings out of this hood. So that effectively renders this hood like useless to me unless I'm gonna buy a whole different set of filters for just this lens, or I guess now that I have the RF 50mm, ooh, spoiler alert, you know, I guess I could buy that, but it's just, it feels like a waste. It feels like a waste. I wish they would have just made this an 82mm thread mount. Just go a little bit wider, go beyond the glass. That's honestly, if you look at the 15 to 35, look at that edge on there, right? Now it's gotta have some clearance in order for it to go to that wide 15, but like, there's a lot of, I guess bezel is the right word. Is that the right word for it? I don't know. To make this lens an 82mm thread mount. I have a lot of value in my filters, all of them at the 82mm thread mount, because I thought, oh, I'll just step up this and that's great, I can cover the whole kit, and I would like to use the hood, especially on zoom lenses like the 70 to 200. I would like to use the hood. I think that would be really helpful, but you'll have to buy all new filters. That's not fun. Not a fan. Another weird quirk about this lens is the fact that if you look at most of the RF glass, the control rings are put to the front of the lens. I got very used to that, especially coming from the 24 to 105 and then moving to the 15-35, the 24 to 70. On this lens, your control ring is choked up near the mount, which is right here, so it's not in that forward position. So a lot of times what I end up doing is I'll switch from like the 15 to 35, doing some landscapes, want some detail shots out in the forest, out on a lake somewhere, out on a glacier, wherever I'm at. Switch over to this thing, and all of a sudden I'm thinking I'm gonna control my aperture, which is what I have my control ring set to, and I'm changing my focal length. That's not good. Now, I did mention this, I think, in the video that I did about the 70 to 200. If you had been adapting your EF glass and you have the RF to EF adapter with control ring, this will feel natural. I have used that adapter, and so if you're coming from something like that, this feels normal. It feels good. You're like, okay, hey, that control ring is right there, right by the mount where I kind of remember it being. That's not bad. I actually don't mind it being there once you get used to it. It's not that big of a deal, but it did take some getting used to, and it still kind of catches me off every once in a while. And for consistency's sake, I don't know why they didn't do that. And I want to actually even say, I think on the F4 version of this lens, I think they actually put the control ring back out up front, which, no consistent. I don't know. I don't know why Canon does these things to us. I couldn't tell you. The final quirk, weird thing that I have with this lens is it will not work with the new RF extender or converter, or at least that's what the specs say of the extender. I haven't tried the extender yet with it because I didn't want to spend all that money just trying to see like, hey, can I hack this thing on here, which is kind of a bummer. In the EF days, you would talk about getting a 70 to 200, having that 2x range extender, and then being able to cover all the way up to 400 with some loss like in your aperture. But yeah, that doesn't seem to be like an option anymore, which is kind of a bummer. So, all right, that is a lot to talk about as far as these three lenses go. But I wanted to get that out there because ultimately these are incredible lenses. I highly recommend them if you have the money, especially if you're doing paid client work. This should be, I think, a kit that most photographers that are on Canon's RF platform should want to have. They're absolutely phenomenal, great looking glass, durable. I've beaten them up. This 70 to 200 already and only having it for a little under a year. It's scuffed up, scratched up, still works great. And I'm a big fan of all the images they produce. None of these quirks or issues are problems that are going to affect, I think, the image quality of these lenses. These are all sort of quality of life for the photographer kind of things that I wanted to put out there, because if you're a photographer, if you're this far in this video and you're not a photographer, I guess thank you for being here. Appreciate it. For photographers and anyone shooting video on something like an R5 or any of the RF mount cameras, these are all things just to think about when you're building this kit out. Thinking about some of those quirks as far as like filter mount thread sizes and like taking certain lenses hiking and not having locks and just having to think about that stuff. All of those are just little things that I wish Canon would have done something about or addressed or had a workaround for, and maybe by making this video they'll see it, and the Mark IIs of all of these in whatever 4 years can be just a little bit better. But at the end of the day, amazing image quality, and these lenses are pretty incredible. But those are the quirks. That's the weird stuff. With that, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Stephen Foster. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already. For those of you who already have, I am honored by all you. Thank you so much. Please be kind, both in life and in the comments below, and like this video to send good vibes across the internet. We all want good vibes, need good vibes. That sounds like a good deal. It's free, so just do it. Yep, there we go. And we'll do it again soon. I feel like I should use all of these in the outro. Like, yeah, this is a good outro. Later.